Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the System 2 podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Jorge, who is the founder and CEO of EvolveIQ. Jorge's background has been building and scaling go-to-market engines across fintech and data-driven B2B companies, including leading growth at American Express, to Sigma, and a bunch of other companies. Jorge, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Matei. Thank you very much for having me, and very excited to be here.
So at EvolveIQ, you are helping with go-to-market strategies. What is one of the biggest mistakes that you see people making when they're approaching their go-to-market strategy?
That's a really good question. One of the things I see happening over and over again is that, particularly at early stage startups, not leveraging the CEO as much as needed. The CEOs know everything. Right at an early stage startup, they know the vision, they know the product, they know the market, they know the pain points, and basically you have to do a download of their brains as possible. So using them on LinkedIn, on blogging, conferences, it's such a really big asset that sometimes is not leveraged, and they skip even the founder-led sales stage, which is also like key. So CEOs need to be in front of the company, in front of clients. They have to be talking, they have all the knowledge that's needed. I think that's a big mistake when that doesn't happen.
What advice do you have for CEOs who might want to be more client-facing, to be in more marketing materials, but they're busy with so much other work? What are some advice you have for them to help prioritize and make sure that they focus on doing this kind of outreach?
Yeah, no, that's very very important to consider, which is they have to leverage technology. Like right now, there is with AI like an unprecedented level of support that we can get, right? Like, and at small startups, a lot of times, like the CEO is doing multiple things. They're working, as I said, product. They're working on sales. They're raising money. They're doing a bunch of things, but using this technology to create content, for example, to accelerate the ways of finding prospects, it makes their lives so much easier, right? So and I know that some people are going to be not happy with this advice, but to me, even writing content with AI is valid as long as your thesis is your thesis. And something that CEOs have is points of views on their market. If I'm a CEO at a early stage startup and I don't have the time to spend 2 hours writing a perfect piece and editing and all that, and I don't have the resources to hire a copywriter to make it perfect, I can actually I have all the ideas in my head, right? Like it's just a matter of like dictating it in a like a detailed way and having the AI write it, and then you with a few prompts you can make sure it sounds like you. So technology is definitely now more than ever at the perfect stage for people in that situation where they don't have the time to do them themselves.
Do you have any tips for people who want to leverage AI to create more of these automated marketing messages? To your point, how can you get your voice into the machine so that it sounds more authentic?
That's something that a lot of people are suffering with. Use ChatGPT since it came out with what was that, the 3.0 version a few years ago. I've literally been training it in my voice, and I have like a project for each type of content I produce. I have like my messaging. I have the pain points that I focus on. I even have my resume there. Like I have everything, and I have like specific rules that I want when I write. So when I write, I go to that particular project that is kind of trained, quote unquote, I would say, on my voice. And it does a pretty good job. Like, sometimes I need to reprompt it for sure. But it does a very good job as long as you give a lot of context, as long as you have like a strong, very clear point of view, and it has all the context in terms of like what you're missing, how do you write, what are your rules. And now there is a skill that is making the rounds. I'm not sure if you've heard of it with Claude, that is called the humanizer. So the humanizer is kind of a last pass that you do on your copy that eliminates all the annoying and common giveaways for AI, like the M dash was resolved a few months ago, but like the contrasting constructions, all those things, removes them. So again, honestly, I'm not opposed to that type of writing as long as it's your original content. Those are your ideas. So I think that using those tools, it's comes out very, very well.
Curious how all this tech has changed a lot over the years. And if you reflect back on your career, whether it was at Amex to Sigma, how would your job have been different then had you had access to this? Or maybe conversely, like what have you taken away from those jobs that you're applying now when you think about go-to-market strategies?
Yeah, that's changed so much, particularly for marketing. The world is completely different than it used to be. Like I'm not a native speaker, right? I'm originally from Mexico City, so my English, as much as I've lived in New York for 20 years right now, it's never going to be perfect. I can identify good content, but I struggle and it takes me much longer. So starting with that, right? Like when I was at Amex or at Two Sigma or before, writing was something I needed a copywriter with me, right? So that to begin with that, and even like strategies, right? Like, the way you would approach a go to market 15 years ago versus today is completely different. Like to begin with, email marketing right now is cold emailing right now is completely destroyed. Like I'm sure you get, 5 emails a day from people trying to sell you things, right? So cold emailing is really, really hard to do unless you have good intent data. Intent data didn't exist, right? Like, I mean, it existed in a very primitive way. But 15 years ago, intent data was very different. Right now, tools that exist makes the life of a marketer so much easier. So it's completely different.
What kind of businesses are you mostly working with? I'm curious because I'm assuming you've worked with a number of different companies in different sectors. Are there certain lessons that need to be more specific to that industry, or do most of these techniques work across the board?
So my most of my work has been within fintech SaaS. I actually have a couple of clients right now that are not fintech. They are still SaaS, but not fintech. But the techniques, I think that for the most part, they are fairly transferable within different verticals. But there are some things that are very specific to fintech, right? Like in fintech, many times you're working with regulated you know, is a related industry, really, depending on the content you're working on. Uh, One of my clients is on the compliance side. So with them, we have to be very, very careful on what we write. We have a compliance person, of course, that does verifications of all the content we write. But yeah, it's very, very transferable within the industry. And with many of the companies I work with, Two Sigma, for example, the of technical content and technical products require a much more specific skill set. So something I would say is that for those type of companies, marketers need to be more technical than your average marketer. The marketer is going to help you market, let's say, video content for SaaS. It doesn't have to be B2C, but still doesn't have to be as technical as a marketer that is going to be selling, factor model, for example. It's completely different. You need to understand it, and you need to be able to write to the audience. Like hedge funds, for example, they don't want a blog that talks about the weather and things like that, right? They want more dry content. Like if you write a very good white paper, that's what they want in some like quant hedge funds, right? As opposed to like other type of client that will be looking for something that are not looking for something that dry. They want something a little bit more approachable.
Mm. Mm. I'm curious also at Two Sigma, you were the CMO of was it internal platform, like SaaS platform? Like tell us a little bit more about what that was and what your marketing strategy was then. I think it'd be helpful to get some examples of what you were just describing of what it actually takes to market something within a hedge fund.
Yeah. So it was, I was CMO of Ven, which is used to be actually was just sold a few months ago. It was factor risk platform that we're selling to institutional investors. So it was actually was a product that was created within Two Sigma for Two Sigma's clients. So it started as consulting. Two Sigma being a very tech forward company, productized it, and made it a technology. And then we realized that there was an opportunity to commercialize that outside of the company. So we were targeting institutional investors for the most part. And the as I was saying, like the type of approaches that we were taking back then, it was very much more technical, right? Like we were doing content blogging, and we had someone within the team that was actually a very technical person that understood perfectly well hedge funds and risk management and factors and all that. And our blog posts were like super technical. We were doing account-based marketing, trying to get in touch with several personas within the firms we're targeting, for example. So we're doing a lot of that. We were doing cold emailing, which again, as I said, it was working, right? At that point, cold emailing worked, as opposed to today that, again, if you don't have high intent, it's hard to make it work. We're doing also programmatic marketing with trade magazines. So it was a very well orchestrated strategy because as much as we were a startup, we still had the resources of Two Sigma, right? So we were able to put together a very nice, comprehensive ABN campaign that had multiple touch points and channels.
On that point about email open rates, saw on your LinkedIn that you had 35% plus open rates on some of these emails, 15% click-through rates. Those are insane numbers. Are you able to replicate this today? If someone today wanted to achieve such high conversion on marketing, what do you need to do?
So yes, actually, with one of our clients, we have had even like 39% open rates in some emails. Something that we do is we don't do sales emails. We do content like educational emails, and then bring people down the funnel, right? So I don't sell you an email saying like, "Oh, I saw your post about blah blah. I see that you could be a good client for this," or "I saw you went to this college. I went there too. Or I know like go Bears or whatever." Like people send those on those emails. We don't do that. We create high quality content, and we share that content via our emails, and then the people that react to those, then we invite them to a webinar. So the whole idea is bring people down the funnel, so you warm them up. So that's the only way that type of strategy works. Back then, the cold emails were working better, and you could achieve those things with a good strong copy. You could achieve that. Now it's hard again unless it's high intent.
I'm just afterwards, after Two Sigma, you joined CSAM, and I believe they're a French company. And what was that like? What was marketing like for a French fintech company versus what you have been accustomed to here in New York City?
Yeah, no, that's it was very different, and there were particularly, I'm not sure, like my sample with French companies is the same, right? So I don't have many more than that, but my experience was actually very similar than to Sigma in terms of culture. People were very smart, like a lot of smart people, a lot of technical people because of the product we were selling, but also like a very nice environment. I'm not sure if you've heard this, but one of the founders of Two Sigma used to call Two Sigma a place for nice geeks because people were super nice. People at Two Sigma were super nice. Like every single person you talk to, it was like super nice and super smart people. I felt like it was similar culture with Sesam. Very, big cultural differences. And I was able to adapt kind of quick to that because I'm Mexican. So there were some similarities with the cultures, French culture and American culture. But I was used to, here, like in the morning, sending a Slack to someone and it's like, "Hi, can I have this? Or do you have this?" Blah, blah, right? In Sam, I would receive a message, be like, "Hi, Jorge, how are you?" And they wouldn't say anything else. They would wait for me to respond, "Oh, I'm good. How are you?" And then
What a novel concept is like that actually.
being people. Yeah, and it was a lot of that. But every like I think probably I had like maybe two, three people. The CEO, Sylvain, with him, it was much more, much faster communication. Some of the C levels, yes. But for most people, it was like it had to be like very, a lot of pleasantries before getting into the actual work, which was really funny. But it was good. I enjoyed it.
I love that. I think I sometimes do that too when you go to check out, especially if there's like a longer line at some coffee shop and someone's like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" But they don't really mean that. They just want you to place your order and get the hell out of there. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll actually stop, make eye contact with them. It's like, "Oh, I'm actually having a pretty good day," or like, whatever. How's your day? And it throws them off. If you actually start to have a little conversation about the question they just asked you, and they're like, "Oh, wait, this isn't going to be transactional. You actually like care a little bit about what's
Care.
going
Yeah.
on," can be, yeah,
100%.
can sometimes be a differentiated strategy.
Yep. Yeah. And and the relationships I built with Sam were much deeper. Like even going to Paris, every time I went, to go out and have lunch and a proper sitting lunch, and people were like eating, and then people order dessert. I was like, "What? We're being here for an hour. Are we now ordering desserts?" And people
Yeah.
would do that. It was good. I was just not able to dessert because I had eaten too much. But we would do that, and it was just like you build like deep relationships, and it was nice.
How I'm curious about even about Mexico City and some of these like cultural differences because it was nice. I've been to Mexico City. It's awesome. It's such a cool place. Speaking of food, there's a lot of great food. What is the business culture there like? Is it also more relationship based, where you want to get to know people, you want to share meals with them, or is it more transactional?
Yeah, no, very very relationship driven, like very relationship driven. I worked at Amex in Mexico, and then I came here to New York. And after about 8 years or something, I had to go back to do some work there. And I was at the office for like a couple of weeks, and I didn't remember. I was shocked that Monday mornings, people would come and say hi to every single person with a hug. Literally, every single person in the office. And the rest of the week, it was just a kiss. There was no hugging. But yeah, it's all relationship. It's like, having, lunch with people and going out and developing a lot of like relationships is not very transactional. Now, I haven't done that in probably, 12, 14 years. So things may have changed, but back then things were very, very relationship driven in a very different way than
Do you think that could work on social media if you wanted to be a brand that's known more for relationships and you wanted to replicate some of this? Let's just sit down and talk to people, have a meal, but do it on social media. I wonder what that version would look like.
that's interesting, right? That's an interesting concept. We did when I was at SAM. My team was all remote. Like we were in like six different cities or something. I had someone in Tunisia, someone in a small city in France called Metz, people in Paris, I had someone here in what was it, Oregon, something like that. So we were like all over the place. One time someone was leaving the team, so we decided to do a like a virtual, like what you were saying. We had like a virtual farewell party, and everybody went down, got food, whatever. We were just having actually, someone had the idea of bringing like a board game, like a virtual board game. We did that. It was fun. I'm not sure how much that work in social media, but it feels like, particularly now with AI, where there's so much like AI driven content and all these kind of starts to feel more and more artificial. There's room for something like that. For some kind of network that doesn't allow AI at all, like it's completely banned, and you kind of actually develop something deeper. I would think that that's possible.
Or it can go the other direction and things just become even sloppier. I'm curious what your take is on like LinkedIn has historically tried to hold more firm on relative to other social media platforms, and yet we now see all these videos popping up on there that have nothing to do with anything business, but they're just very clickbaity type videos that make us want to watch. And I was talking to some friends. I was at this CPG event, and they were talking about how certain types of companies do well on TikTok. And they give me an example of protein powders doing really well on TikTok. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, yeah, because they make good, compelling videos. It's like, what's so compelling about a protein powder? It's like,
Yeah.
well, you pour it in a glass of water, and That's it. People love putting poor shit into a glass of water, and sometimes it might even change color. And that's it. That's like literally the video. You just pour it in, you stir it, and it changes color, and all of a sudden you're getting like going viral on TikTok for some stupid video that has like no meaning. And I'm seeing more of this now on LinkedIn with all sorts of, yeah, like people laying out cement, and you're just watching these things that are just pleasing to the eyes, but have really no substance to them. So I'm curious how you're thinking about that side of it, where on one hand you're talking about white papers and creating really interesting. The white paper is supposed to be the marketing version of a research paper. It's not quite at that academic level, but it's right up there. And now you're talking about, yeah, making something that would go viral on TikTok, and it's getting you a ton of hits on LinkedIn. Like, is that the companies embrace that to get the views, or should we hold ourselves up to a higher standard?
Yeah, I think that the newer generations will tell us, but I agree with you what you're saying. Like there's more and more of that happening. What's interesting is that people actually engage with that, as you were saying. One of our clients, it's actually an AI video generation company, B2B, but it's in a more fun side of things, I guess. And we were doing ads for them on Meta, like Facebook and was that Instagram, all that. And we were using an AI avatar, of course, to for the webinar for the sorry for the ads, and they performed so well. I was shocked on how well those ads performed. I guess the allure of having someone that looks real but not quite, like almost there, and is good looking and it's saying something fun. It just like gets people hooked, right? And yeah, they were working like really really well. Not sure if that would have worked on LinkedIn. We didn't run them on LinkedIn, and that was on purpose. We didn't think it was a good strategy or good use of our investment money there. Probably, like, maybe there's room for that based on what you're saying, right? And you're right, like, LinkedIn is pushing a lot of that content. With one of our clients, we do actually vertical videos, sorry. We do vertical videos, Instagram style, and those oftentimes perform much better than the horizontal ones because people are watching them on their phones. Right. So, it's easy. So probably there's room for something a little less rigorous. I'm not sure if I would go as far as, pouring powder on water, but there may be room for that. And again, like the kids are now like 22 and they're entering the workforce. They're going to have a completely different approach and appetite for things. So who knows?
Speaking of kids, what were you like as a kid? Did you know you wanted to end up in marketing?
No. That's it's actually interesting that you say that. I'm a marketer, but I consider myself more of an entrepreneur than a marketer. Like I and it's like the function I've been doing over the last 15 18 years, whatever. But I'm more of an entrepreneur. I like creating things. I always, every time that there's a new wave of technology, I get like ideas. Like when iPhone came out, I had like 20 ideas of what to do with it. That sadly I never executed on. Now with AI,
What
similar.
did you want to do? What were some of these ideas for the iPhone?
Well, actually, one of those was like the Uber idea. I wanted to do a ride hailing app. I never did it, and then Uber came out, and that was it. So, but that had some legs. Obviously, execution is different than ideas, right? But anyway, yeah, I had ideas, and I have ideas all the time about that. And when I was a kid, one of the things I wanted to be was inventor. So I did have kind of that inclination for new things and trying to create things. One time I was trying to create this system with light bulbs in my house. And obviously I made like lights go off and my dad was so upset.
What was this? What were you trying to do? What was the system?
I remember it was something like we were trying to connect a few different light bulbs, and they were connecting to some circuits that were supposed to do to react to like I think we're supposed to like step on them or so to the circuits and turn on and off or something like that, and it was just not properly done.
I also just love how I grew up in Romania and we also played with electricity straight from the outlets, and it's not, I feel like kids here would have had a different type of childhood. But yeah, there's something about, but yeah, there's nothing off limits. You got to start plugging stuff into the outlets and connecting a bunch of light bulbs. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, until your
And
dad
were
yells
you
at.
ever electrocuted?
No, 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 no. I was burned a bit myself because I always like to play with fire when I was when I was a kid.
But
I
yeah, no, I've definitely been shocked a bunch of times as a kid, and that's also something that my American friends can't really relate to. It's it happened quite frequently. There's things
oh
that I
yeah.
just yeah.
And now, I'm not sure if you have kids, but now things are like as safe as possible. When I was a kid, I was biking in Mexico City, which was not as crazy as today, but it was not that super safe. And I was at 10, I was biking the streets without a helmet, and it was fine. Now kids like have helmets and they are like they go to proper places, so very
Yeah,
different.
no, yeah, things are changing. And so, okay, so you wanted to you're interested in being an inventor. You wanted to be an entrepreneur. How did you end up at Amex? What was that journey?
Yeah, completely by coincidence. Like many things in life happen. I was in college and I wanted a job. I wanted money. I was like, maybe I started my third year in college and I ran into a friend from high school and she told me she was working at Amex, at the call center. And I asked her, if they have, openings? She's like, oh yeah, they're hiring. Yeah, just go. But this is like, I don't know, like December and whatever. I go have an interview. Jan 2nd, I'm already I'm working at Amex. Back then, wearing a suit and a tie and everything. And I was actually working for the call center for the Caribbean, which was a really fun experience because, it was very stressful back then. Now it sounds fun, but with my English learned in Mexico, never lived in the U.S. I'm there talking to people from like Jamaica and Bahamas and Barbados, and they wouldn't understand what I was saying. I wouldn't understand what they were saying. And then it started like getting better, and in my ear more attuned to the accents and all that. And then it worked out well for after a few failures. Yeah, that was fun.
What did you learn from doing customer service early on in your career? What did you learn about dealing with people that stuck with you?
Yeah, it was a great experience. Like everything from what you are asking, like the actual, listening to people, being patient, being patient. That was one of the biggest ones, right? Like I was 20 or something like that. So, I was not like trained to be patient, right? And you have these people like sometimes you have to explain them the things over and over again, or sometimes they're agitated and they have something they're complaining about, and you have to keep your cool, and you just walk them through, needs to be explained. So learning a lot of patience and how to, behave yourself and communicate properly. But to be honest, even I learned like the call center management and how to like metrics and all those things. And when I started my first company back in 2013, I was also the CMO, but I was also leading support because I had like all all that understand how to manage like the metrics, what's important, what you should pay attention to, and even the forms that need to be filled to get like information into the Zendesk app and all those things. So yeah, it was a great experience.
What was this company? So this is after Amex, or how did you end up in the US? Was that through Amex?
I was working for American Express. So I started at the call center. And then, of course, I was in finance. My major is actually in finance. And I moved I applied for a role internally within the American Express Treasury for Latin America. And I stayed there for a few years. And then there was an opportunity here in New York. So they brought me here and stayed there for a couple of years. And I realized that I didn't want to be a treasurer, or I didn't want to be like a CFO, which was kind of the path that this was taking me. So I moved to marketing analytics within Amex. So I was doing a marketing analytics role with my numeric background, analytical background, it was kind of easy move. And then I moved to an actual marketing role, and then I started this company. So I ran again coincidentally. So I went to business school during that time, and I had met a bunch of people. And after business school, randomly, I ran into one of my friends from business school at a party, and he told me that he was talking to another of our school, classmates about starting a company, and they were like already doing some stuff. They were like, we should talk. So I talked to them. I was like, yeah, and that was one of the things I wanted to do. I wanted to either do consulting or start a company when I went to business school. We talked, and I joined them as a third co-founder, and then we, raised money, started, and with that.
And you guys were exited, you were acquired by another company. Like, what was that whole journey like?
Another amazing adventure. It was great, very stressful, as most entrepreneurship situations are. But we were doing financial planning software for wealth managers. And our whole premise was that our product was much more streamlined than the incumbents, and the incumbents had been there forever. I remember I used to joke that it looked like Windows 95, and this is 2013. Our UX was much cleaner, all that. So that was our whole spiel, and it was much more automated. So we grew the company quite a bit. When we sold, we were about 45 employees at the company, and we have a few rounds of funding. And yeah, no, it was an amazing journey. Like really enjoyed it, with the ups and downs of a startup. Like companies wanting to acquire you, and then it doesn't work out, or you're about to close this amazing deal and it doesn't work out. Then you close the actual amazing deal and it's amazing. And, things like that. Ended up selling in 2019. We were approached by a bigger, fintech company, Orion Advisor Solutions, like a really, really big company. And yeah, they ended up acquiring us.
Were you happy? Was it bittersweet?
I was very happy. I was ready. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like, this is the time. It was close to 7 years. So,
yeah.
it gets to that point where you're like, okay, we're ready to sell.
And now you started another company. What has that journey been like?
So yeah, so this is it's been kind of a big discovery process for me, because the goal when I started EvolveIQ was obviously to apply most of AI technologies to marketing. I knew since ChatGPT came out that this was going to be too big, and there was going to be too disruptive for the industry, particularly for marketers. So the goal was to learn, but I always also had in mind that I wanted to build a product. I didn't know what product to build. So with EvolveIQ, it's been a journey of working with multiple clients on their go-to-market strategies, using AI and agentic AI to help them with their particular goals. So we I have a small team of a couple marketers. I have engineers and designers, and the most interesting part has been the technology part. Just like being able to experience it firsthand, and work with like the different tools, and see how it's evolving, because the evolution has been only like year and a half, and the evolution has been like huge in this year and a half, right? I'm sure you've seen, like, even the last 2-3 months have been just crazy with everything that Claude has been putting out. So yeah, it's been great, a great learning experience. I gathered of all of this was what were the big pain points that all these companies had. So we've been developing a kind of a go-to-market operating system for early stage startups that we're going to be actually launching our beta in about a couple of weeks, which is again gathering all our learnings and putting them into an actual platform.
Where do you think AI goes? I'm curious. You talked a lot about how these models have improved, and from some of my recent conversations, it seems like it can do more and more. Every new update, every new model update is so much better than the ones before. Is there a world where we're all out of jobs?
Honestly, I think there's like a 50-50, or maybe even more than that happens. I can the way you can build things and execute right now, it's so crazy. Like I'll give you a quick example, and I'm sure many people have experienced this from your audience. But a few weeks ago, I was with my kids on Saturday, and they wanted to do a stop motion video, and they were taking their picture. Blah, blah. They're like, now what we do with them? Like I don't know. Let's find an app or something. I was like, oh wait, why don't we like vibe code an app? So we vibe coded an app, a stop motion app. 20 minutes. We had an app ready to use. And we were literally uploading the pictures, uploading music, and playing it, and you modifying it. Very simple app, of course, and it's nothing that you can sell. That it's not like it's not even deployed properly, nothing like that. But I was so impressed that we did that in like 20 minutes, literally 20 minutes. A couple of prompts, boom, boom, boom. How do I deploy it? Do this, boom, done. so my
Yeah.
point with that is like, if you can do those things and you can build so quickly and you're able to create content and create strategies in such a strong way today, I don't see why not this continues like this exponential curve. Like it feels like it's improving itself, right? And it's just gonna keep getting better and better and better. And it gets to a point where maybe you are a baker or something and you go to an app and you're like, hey, I want to start selling my bread. What do I do? Let's start. What do you like? Let's start with the name. Okay. These are the 5 options. Which one do you like? Oh, this one. Okay. Let's do the branding. These are the colors. Blah, blah. Which one do you like? Okay. You need a website. Let's build a website. Okay. And what ovens do I need? Oh yeah. I'll do the research. I'll get in touch with, the vendors, and, you need real estate. I'll find you, 5 spots in this area, and it can build the whole thing. It should be able to build the whole thing for you. I don't think I think that's going to happen. I think it's going to happen, and many people that are not going to be needed anymore. But I think it's just going to unlock other things. I don't think it's going to be this doomsday scenario where all out of jobs and were miserable. I think it's going to open different opportunities, like the industrial revolution, right? Like it just changed the way we live and the way we execute our activities. There's many less farmers in the world that were like 200 years ago, right? But were all other sorts of jobs. So I'm not afraid in that sense. I'm afraid more like in our particular jobs. I think our particular jobs probably those disappear.
Yeah, no, I think that is the question. Even around marketing, to your point, already using technology to churn out a lot more. Even in your company, I'd imagine you need a lot less employees than an agency required in the past to be able to churn out the same amount of content. And the begs the question of the content is just getting it's so easy to create more of it. Who's reading it? Is there also a world where you're writing all these things, and then I have my Claude looking out on LinkedIn for interesting things that are relevant to me? So you're no longer even like marketing to a human, you're marketing to another bot. You like my bot's talking to your bot and all the other bots out there to see what makes sense for system two. Yeah, I don't. It's interesting to see like where if you extrapolate this, where does it go? Not even the long run, but just even in the next year or two.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that, you're right. It could be 1 or 2 years that things are going to continue evolving so rapidly. I felt like, for example, by the end of last year, things were a little like slower. There was not so much like probably at the rate we were accustomed to. Probably for 2 months, nothing huge was happening. And then January was that open claw. And then Claude came up with all these things, and it's just the acceleration is again, it's again like just right, it's just happening so quickly. So yeah, I think that things are gonna change dramatically in the next couple of years, and I feel like the people are gonna be more in trouble. Or the kids are in college now. I think they're getting into like a sandwich type thing where they are like in between like the old way of doing things and new way of doing things, and they will need to figure out what's going to be the type of job they're going to have to do.
Yeah, and it's also to the point that you made about vibe coding the app. I've come across a number of examples like that. And while it's easy to create these minimum viable products, it's unclear as to whether these things can run at a larger scale, like enterprise scale, or even if you want to get a couple of customers to use the app that you just built. I mean, it's a completely different build at that point because you need to do user authentication. I mean, there's a lot more that needs to happen. And part of what I'm seeing, I'm curious if you're seeing some of this too, is that you do one of these experiments, it's like, oh, it works, but it works in a very small proof of concept way. And then you're like, you get super hyped up because you can do anything. But the reality is like, it's very hard it's easy to go from 0 to 1 now using AI, but to go from 1 to 10 or 1 to 100 is a completely different exercise. And you can't just say that because it's trivial to go from 0 to 1, that you can also go from 1 to 100 using the same exact prompts and same exact tools that you've been using. So it's not to say it's not going to get there, but it is an interesting distinction to make that I feel like we're incorrectly extrapolating from these 0 to 1 prototypes that we're building very easily to now saying it can do everything at enterprise scale just as easily.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I've heard, and again, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know. I don't have like much background in this, but what I read is that all these like bigger companies are using actually these tools to build. I don't know to what extent, and I don't know, how deployable is that type of code, but I know they're using them. So, and I know that the efficiencies are getting are huge, right? I listen to some, VC podcasts and startup podcasts, and all of them are saying is like, these companies are just using the technology to build, and the way that affects the output that comes from those teams is much higher. So they are getting much more stuff done. Than the teams without it. So I think that it definitely gets you closer, but to your point, probably is not a deployable product with just those techniques.
Yeah. Where do you see your company going over the next year? You talked about launching this product. I'm curious, yeah, what's exciting to you? What are you looking forward to building, and how is that going to ultimately impact your clients?
Yeah. So as I was saying, like I just see the needs of early stage startup founders, and I just see a big blue ocean there of products they can use. Like if you want to use a HubSpot, it's if you want to really use HubSpot, it's very expensive for an early stage startup. Like I believe starts at like $700 or $900, something like that. For an early stage startups, that's just prohibitive, right? And there are multiple tools like that, and I haven't seen anything that helps you connect multiple parts of your marketing go to market needs within a platform. So that's what we're trying to do. What we're building, what we built actually is a product that helps you start with your all your information about your messaging in one place. So we start by scanning your website. That the tool does that, and gets all the information from there on a knowledge base with what's your messaging, where your pain points you're solving for, what's your ICP, what are your value props, and then all that connects to everything else in the platform. So if you want to do LinkedIn outreach, the content is created based on your ICP and the needs of your client, but in a way that everything is already connected in one platform, right? Or if you want to create content, it helps you do that. It gives you gaps on your website. Like, your website is lacking this. It compares you to your competitors. Like your competitors are talking about this. Do you want to add this type of content? We can write it for you. So it's a very kind of comprehensive website. I want to start a website app that I think it's covering needs that many early stage startups just don't have covered. Starting with what I was talking about messaging, right? Like messaging is very hard first of all, to get right. And second, to be cohesive in all of your channels, right? So that's one thing we're trying to solve. Your messaging comes from a source of truth in the product, and everything you create comes from there. I'm sure you've seen that, but it's very common to see that companies do marketing campaign and an ad and LinkedIn posts and website, and you look at all of them, and they're kind of similar, but it's not like that cohesive. That's what we're trying to solve for, and I think there's a lot of room for growth in that area, particularly for startups that are getting started and are trying to find their ICP, and they don't have the people to do this in a much more sophisticated way. So that's what I'm very excited about, and we'll see what the market says about it.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. How should people find out more about what you're doing if they want to get in touch? What's the best way?
Yeah, of course. My LinkedIn or my email address is jorge at evolve-iq.com. And my LinkedIn, I believe, is whatever, Jorge Alvarez NYC. I believe it's just that, Jorge Alvarez NYC. And yeah, that's how they can find me.
Well, Jorge, it was awesome to speak with you today. It's exciting out to see all the innovation happening in the marketing space. And I like your point about how this can bring down costs significantly for startups that are looking to get more exposure. I think that we're entering the era of the underdog, where you no longer need to have the resources of a Two Sigma to be able to compete in this space. And it's in some ways scary, especially to the incumbents. But if there is sliver of hope, it's probably that these smaller companies can now compete against the much bigger guys. So it's exciting to
100%.
hear that you guys are helping out with that cause.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very, very exciting times. Thank you so much for having me. Really, really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.